Hello everyone. So in this video I'm going to talk about the rest of this book. Actually not the rest, until this point. I've read this part and then in part 3 I will talk about this part. Oops. I used this sticker to stick on the important things that I found useful, that I wanted to talk to you about. And this time I didn't write on my notebook because there was a lot to write and I wanted to make a video as soon as possible. So here it is. And so we read till page 86. I talked about basically your cue should have the same frequency as your new habit. And that was the end of that first video. So if you want to watch the first video, please click here or here, because I might invert it. Yeah, actually here I think. And so there on the part 1 you will find all the information that I talked about this book in the first part. So I'm just gonna straight jump into my video. This thing looks like coming out of my head, so I'll just sit a little bit like this. So I'm in the chapter called Motivation is Overrated, Environment Often Matters More. So when I was reading this book, I found out that it was actually very logically segregated into 4 parts. I'll show you. So basically the book is segregated into 4 laws, which I talked about in the habit loop. So first law is the cue, make it obvious. Second law is craving, make it attractive. Third law is response, make it easy. Fourth law, reward, make it satisfying. So for a good habit, in order to create a good habit, you need to first make it obvious, like, okay, I have to do this. Your cue should be obvious. And then you need to crave it. You need to make that habit attractive, like easy to do. And then third law is make it easy, actually. So make it attractive, make it easy, and then make it satisfying. So in order to invert these laws, you need to make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying, which is how to break a habit, bad habit. So invisible is the most important thing, because our human will is actually very fragile. Like, we do it once, we stop ourselves once, but doing it all the time is exhausting. So we just need to make it invisible. For example, I wanted to stop scrolling on Facebook, especially Facebook, because it's very negative. Instagram, TikTok is kind of okay because it shows me the things that I like, sort of, mostly. But Facebook is full of like Mongolian, because of my location, like Mongolian drama, people's fiends, like people arguing and people dissing each other and things like that. So it was influencing my brain quite badly. So I wanted to stop it, and then I just decided I don't want to scroll on Facebook anymore. So instead I play a game on my phone. If I want to scroll, I just go to my game, which is better because Facebook is influencing my mental health negatively, but a game is like neutral, like you do this, you do that. So at one point, video game, smartphone game is not gonna cut it. I would like to change it to another habit. So at least for now it's working, but I'm not playing that much. I'm just playing whenever I feel like I don't know what to do or just wanted to go to Facebook. I just play. So it's better for my health. So basically, these 4 laws are the 4 big chapters of this book. So we are now in the first law. We're almost gonna finish the first law, I think. Yes. So at the end of the first law, like make it invisible, there's a thing that I found useful, which is a chapter called Motivation is Overrated. Environment often matters more. Motivation is overrated because motivation can't finish. Like if we get tired, we don't have motivation. So we can't actually rely on it. We need to change our environment so that our cue becomes like invisible. Let me read a passage. It is easier to associate a new habit with a new context than to build a new habit in the face of competing cues. When you step outside your normal environment, you leave your behavioral biases. You aren't battling old environmental cues, which allows new habits to form without without interruption. Want to think more creatively? Take a break from the space where you do your daily work, which is also linked to your current thought patterns. So yeah, so when you change your environment, your behavioral cues, behavioral biases change, so you are more likely to not do your bad habits. Another passage. Whenever possible, avoid mixing the context of one habit with another. When you start mixing context, you'll start mixing habits, when the easier ones will usually win out. This is one reason why versatility of modern technology is both a strength and a weakness. You can use your phone for all sorts of tasks, which makes it a powerful device, but when you use your phone to do nearly anything, it becomes hard to associate with one task. You want to be productive, but you're also conditioned to browse social media, check email, and play video games whenever you open your phone. It's a mishmash of cues. So there was one person who always did their reading on iPad and always worked on his computer and on his or her computer and only talked on his or her phone or something, so that a device is only used for one thing. But because smartphones are used for everything, we just want to do the most satisfying thing, so we go to the social media. I think that was also important. Okay, if your space is limited, divide your room into activity zones: a chair for reading, a desk for writing, a table for eating. I know a writer who uses his computer only for writing, his tablet only for reading, and his phone only for social media and texting. Every habit should have a home. I liked that sentence. Every habit should have a home. So when I was doing a yoga challenge every day, I made the habit easier because I was also recording the yoga that I was doing. So my tripod was right next to the yoga mat, and my tripod was in a visible place every day where I do my yoga, near to where I do my yoga. And I think that made the process much more much easier. If you want behaviors that are stable and predictable, you need an environment that is stable and predictable. So I was actually eating at my desk and also at working, and that wasn't working actually. That was negatively impacting my work, what do you call it, motivation or something like that. And I used to watch Netflix on this one while working and things like that. But actually, when I wanted to work, I wanted to watch Netflix or something. So I decided to only eat in my living room and watch Netflix in my living room. And here only I do work and maybe listen to podcasts when I'm, doing something less like brain activity needed things. So yeah, that worked very well. I feel quite more productive, actually. Yeah. Okay, the next chapter is the secret to self-control. Actually, we don't have self-control. We just have to actually, some people have self-control, of course, most people, but it's limited. Okay, so I liked this book also because it starts with a story. So this chapter is starting with a story about Vietnam soldiers in Vietnam, American soldiers in Vietnam. Most of them got hooked into heroin at that time, and then they were using like daily and things like that. But when they came back to their homes, actually, most of them, like 80% of them, were able to quit because they were not in Vietnam, they were not in the war. Most of the people around him aren't smoking heroin, and there's no need because there's no stress. They're home. So most of them were able to quit heroin. So it was contrary to most studies at that time, where they thought heroin users are most likely never gonna quit, things like that. But people who got into heroin in the first place in their home, they actually have the stress cues to smoke in their home. So when they go to rehab, for example, they don't have the cues, so they were able to quit. But when they return home, all the cues to smoke heroin are there, so they go back really easily. So in the context of normal society, heroin users are less likely to quit, but for Vietnam War soldiers, they were able to quit because the environment is completely different. Their stress cues are gone. Okay, that's what I found out. And another passage: disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower and self-control. In other words, they spend less time in tempting situations. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. It's easier to practice self-restraint when you don't have to use it very often. So yes, perseverance, grit, and willpower are essential to success, but the way to improve these qualities is not by wishing you were a more disciplined person, but by creating a more disciplined environment. So I like that because I don't have self-control. I mean, I do, of course, as a human being, I do have self-control a little bit, but it's fleeting. It's very hard to do. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows quitting smoking, quitting eating sugar is so hard. So we just need to make our environment to the point that we don't see sugar or we don't see any cues for cigarettes or, things like that. So we need to make it invisible. So for a bad habit, first law of behavior change should be inverted. For the good habit, it was make it obvious. But for bad habit, you have to make it invisible. If you're spending too much money on electronics, quit reading reviews of the latest tech gear. If you're wasting too much time watching television, move the TV out of the bedroom. If you're playing too many video games, unplug the console and put it in a closet after each use. If you can't seem to get any work done, Leave your phone in another room for a few hours. If you're continually feeling like you're not enough, stop following social media accounts that trigger jealousy and envy. Remove a single cue and the entire habit often fades away. Okay, so I also like this book because they have this chapter summary. So even if you forget the very important thing when you're reading, you can find it in the summary. So I highlighted 2 sentences. The first one is, people with high self-control tend to spend less time in tempting situations. It's easier to avoid temptation than resist it. Okay, I talked about that. Okay, the second one is, self-control is a short-term strategy, not a long-term one. So improving self-control, motivation is actually a lie. We can't do that. We just have to make the good habits easier to do and bad habits harder to do. So I like these also like tables because of right now we finished the chapter first law. So the first law has 4 parts, and then after reading the second law will be visible, the inside, the details. So I like that. So if I say it again, how to create a good habit. First one, habit scorecard. Write down your current habits to become aware of them. Secondly, use implementation intentions. I will do this. I will do 10 burpees at 1 o'clock in my kitchen. So you need to state the behavior, time, and location. That is implementation intention, because you are intending to do and you are sort of like imagining, so it's more easier to do. Third one is use habit stacking. So if you see your habit scorecard, you have this habits that you already do, and then you use one habit. After one current habit, you will do your new habit. The fourth one is design your environment. Make the cues of good habits obvious and visible. Okay, that I understand. Okay, how to break a bad habit is reduce exposure. Remove the cues of your bad habits from your environment. So he emphasizes the how to create good habits, and he talks about how to break the bad habits, which is inversion of this basically. Okay, the second law, make it attractive. Let's go to the place. So he talked about the dopamine spike. So before doing something, actually our dopamine, if we make it attractive, actually the thought of doing it is spiking our dopamine, not the actual habit, not the actual doing. So we need to in order to make it attractive, we have to spike our dopamine before doing that habit, I think. Okay, how to use temptation bundling to make your habits more attractive. Temptation bundling works by linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do. In Byrne's case, he bundled watching Netflix, the thing he wanted to do, with riding his stationary bike, the thing he needed to do. So Byrne actually made a bike that powers Netflix. So when he wants to watch Netflix, he needs to bike. So that's temptation bundling basically. Link an action you want to do with an action you need to do. So watching Netflix actually spikes your dopamine. Like thinking about watching Netflix spikes your dopamine. Oh yeah, I like that show, I want to watch it. The thought spikes your dopamine, so you're more likely to do it. So linking that with a habit that you need to do is a very attractive one. Makes the biking more attractive. Temptation bundling is one way to apply a psychology theory known as Premack's principle, named after the work of Professor David Premack. The principle states that more probable behaviors will reinforce less probable behaviors. In other words, even if you don't really want to process overdue work emails, you'll become conditioned to do if it means you get to do something you really want to do along the way. For example, maybe you want to get a pedicure, but you need to clean out your email inbox. The solution is only get a pedicure while processing overdue work emails. So yeah, you really want to do, and then you don't really want to do, but you need to do. These two activities need to be combined. Okay, if you want to check Facebook, but you need to exercise more, then you can first, after I pull out my phone, I will do 10 burpees. Second, after I do 10 burpees, I will check Facebook. After I pull out my phone, I will do 10 burpees. After I do 10 burpees, I will check Facebook. Yeah, something you want to do and then something you need are combined. Okay, the next chapter is called The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. So there is a really interesting study conforming to social norms. So there was this study where people participated, but actually only one person is being subjected to this experiment. Others are actors, and then they were arguing over, which is correct and things like that. Actually, this one is exactly the same length as C. But the person knows that, but most of the people who are actors are saying, oh no, C is not equal to this. And then most of the people who are in the experiment actually conform to most people because they are afraid to be the weird one, the odd one out. They conform to social norms even if they know that they are incorrect. So there are social things that we all do. So we imitate the close, imitate our family and friends. We imitate the many. We follow society. And we imitate the powerful, the people that we think they are powerful. So one of the most effective things you can do to build better habits is to join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior and you already have something in common with the group. So yeah. So we are social people, social beings. So basically, for example, if I want to ride a bike, if I want to really learn how to ride a bike without any fear and things like that, I would go to Netherlands because most people there use bike and it's super normal that it will not, it will be weird to not bike because there are so many bike lanes, things like that. So yeah. And if a behavior can get us approval, respect, and praise, we find it attractive. So I guess we join a club or join something that most of people are doing without thinking and approve of your behavior, then you're more likely to stick with the behavior, the good habit. That's what this chapter is about, I think. Okay, next one is how to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. Okay, life feels reactive, but it's actually predictive. All day long, you're making your best guess of how to act given what you've just seen and what has worked for you in the past. You are endlessly predicting what will happen in the next moment. You have been sensing the cues the entire time, but it's only when you predict that you would be better off in a different state that you take action. A craving is the sense that something is missing. It is the desire to change your internal state. So for example, if an alcoholic person is An alcoholic person is actually not really happy with themselves in real life or any substance. Like they want to change their state of mind because right now is not really nice compared to that state of mind. So they choose the other state of mind all the time. That's where craving comes from, right? Like you think about the action and then you predict how you will feel after you take it, and then you desire it, you crave it, and if it's easy to obtain, then you will do it. Yeah, so we think life is reactive, but actually it's predictive. It's very true. I once heard a story about a man who uses a wheelchair. When asked if it was difficult being confined, he responded, "I'm not confined to my chair. I'm liberated by it. If it wasn't for my wheelchair, I would be bedbound and never able to leave my house." This shift in perspective completely transformed how he lived each day. So, actually, it's very smart. I'm actually learning to make my bad thoughts into good thoughts. Actually, it's very useful. Whenever I think a bad thought, then I have to think the opposite of it. Because why would I believe a bad thought? Because it's actually not true. I know it's not true, but I keep thinking about it. But when I think about the opposite of that, and opposite could be true, then I feel better, because human beings actually are more concentrated on the negative things. We are always calculating what could go wrong because in order to survive, we needed to think about those things. But at this point in 21st century, living in, in a city and a fairly calm environment, in a fairly calm war-free zone, you don't have to think about all these bad things, right? So we need to sometimes switch off our survival mode, and in order to do that, we need to think good thoughts, the opposite thoughts of our bad thoughts, as much as possible. We need to change, alchemize the bad thoughts with the good thoughts, the counter thoughts. And that if that becomes a habit, then we will start to believe the good thoughts, and then good thoughts will prevail, and your life will become better, basically. Okay, for exercise, instead of telling yourself, "I need to go run in the morning," say, "It's time to build endurance and get fast." Okay, for finance, living below your current means increases your future means. The money you save this month increases your purchasing power next month. Distraction is a good thing because you need distractions to practice meditation. Pre-game jitters. I'm excited. I'm getting an adrenaline rush to help me concentrate. Yeah, those are the good thoughts to make the bad thoughts better. Good into good thoughts. So in the chapter summary, there's sentence. Every behavior has a surface level craving and a deeper underlying motif. So yeah. So we need to think about our own behavior more. Like, for example, just before doing a bad habit, we think about like what is actually making us to do that. Why do I need to change my, if I do this, do I feel better? Why do I feel better? Can I do something else to achieve a better state? Something like that. Because when after you do a bad habit, actually you don't feel really good. You feel guilty. That's why you know it's a bad habit, right? If you didn't know it was a bad habit, you wouldn't feel guilty. So if we are feeling guilty, and even then we are doing it, that's making us unhappy. So in order to make ourselves more happier, we need to change whatever we're about to do, which is a bad habit, with another thing, we need to do another thing that makes us less guilty. The cause of your bad habits is actually the prediction that precedes them. The prediction leads to a feeling. Create a motivation ritual by doing something you enjoy immediately after a difficult habit. So we're trying to make the difficult habit easier as much as possible. So this is after the explanation. After each chapter, we have this, and I highlighted join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Okay, so we're going to the third law now. Walk slowly, but never backwards. At the end of the term, he was surprised to find that all the best photos were produced by the quantity group. Oh yeah. So there was this teacher who said, who divided their students into two categories of homework assignment. One was the quantity group, the other was quality group. So the quantity group would give 100 photos of creative photography, and the other group was gonna give the teacher only one quality photo, only one. And then which one do you think produced the best results, the best photos? It was the quantity group. During the semester, these students were busy taking photos, experimenting with composition and lighting, testing out various methods in the darkroom and learning from their mistakes. In the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skill. Actually, it was not 100 photos, it was like a lot of photos. I think. They would be graded solely on the amount of work they produced. The other one was 100 photos would rate an A, 90 photos a B, 80 photos a C. And the quality one was only produced one photo. Meanwhile, the quality group sat around speculating about perfection. In the end, they had little to show for their efforts other than unverified theories and one mediocre photo. How long does it actually take to form a new habit? Actually, it's not about how much time we need. How many times, after how many times we do it is more important. Habit formation is the process by which a behavior becomes progressively more automatic through repetition. The more you repeat an activity, the more the structure of your brain changes to become efficient at that activity. Neuroscientists call this long-term potentiation, which refers to the strengthening of connections between neurons in the brain based on recent patterns of activity. With each repetition, cell-to-cell signaling improves and the neural connections tighten. Neurons that fire together wire together. This is the Hebb's law. The Hebb's law was first described by neuropsychologist Donald Hebb in 1949. Neurons that fire together wire together. I like saying that. Okay, so there's this habit line, and then how many repetitions until it becomes automatic is more important than how long it takes. The amount of time you have been performing habit is not as important as the number of times you have performed it. That's what I highlighted. And that's it. We're done for the part 2. Okay, so see you on my next video. I will talk about the third law, the rest of the third law, and fourth law. Thank you for watching my video. See you on my next. Bye.